So today we're joined by Ramesh Biradar. So I've known Ramesh for a few years, and I'm delighted to have him on the podcast. I'm not going to do you justice with the introduction, so please feel free. Who are you, Ramesh, and what do you do?
I'm an engineer, Gordon, and with that,
Good
and
man.
morning to you, Gordon. Thank you for inviting me on this podcast. I've been watching podcasts, many other geopolitical, but I didn't think that I would be a part of some podcast. But I'm Ramesh. I come from India, place called Bangalore. I was the first seaman in my family, and still they believe that I'm on a fishing boat, fishing sometimes. And I was from Bangalore. I did my engineering in mechanical, and then I was trying to do my MBA, wherein I felt MBA is not my cup of coffee, and I had to leave it after 3 months. And then I joined this company, the only company at the time I applied, and I got through was the barbership management at the time,
Right.
which is now called as Williamson Ship Management. And then on, I grew as a cadet. I joined as an engine cadet and grew slowly. That was back in 2000. And in 2013, I stepped down as a chief engineer to the shore side, becoming a tech sub. And my shore journey started from 2013, and now is 2023, 10 years down. Here I am, technical director in Sumac Ocean Transport.
Not bad, 10 years.
Yeah, this is 10 years. That's pretty much the short and introduction about me.
Good man, good man. It's impressive to see someone go from obviously chief engineer to technical director in 10 years. It's a rarity. But obviously, I mean, as you said there, you spent the best part of your career with one employer, which again is rare to see. So from my perspective, you don't often see that.
It has been. I spent 22 years of my career as a sea and shore with my ex-company, Williamson. And I had to, I wanted to grow, I wanted to have change. And if you see my graph in the career, it was pretty much going up. So, which means I wanted more and more challenge. So, which I got through in this company currently. And we are owners of the bulk carriers. So we mostly Ultramaxes and Kamsamaxes. We're a state-owned company back in China. So,
right.
As you told, working in one company is good and bad. For me, it worked good.
Oh, yeah. So obviously, you said there that if we go way back to the beginning, your family still think that you're working in fishing boats. Like, how did you end up in the maritime world?
Oh yeah, that's a good one because honestly, I'm coming from a very reserved society. We are. My father was a nuclear power corporation engineer, setting up the control rooms, and so we have a small colonized living style.
Right.
So when I was doing my MBA, I came for a break, where smoke break with one of my senior college mates, and he was in merchant navy. So he was telling merchant navy is pretty much, we call in India as merchant navy. So so he was telling me the stories on the high seas. It sounded like and something which clicked me was the US dollars. Good salary.
So did he tell you? Did he tell you how much they were earning?
At that time, no, actually, I don't remember how much he was telling, but it sounded pretty good. Salary, decent salary, and if I'm not wrong, he was about fourth engineer, and he got a car for himself. So I was like, oh God, this something. But I was a core engineer. I'm still now passionate about being my engineer. My engineering skills. Even at home, when I go back on vacations, I start overhauling all the home equipment and stuff like that. So I'm somehow inclined towards doing something with the hammers. So I think that's why I decided to apply this one company. And at that time, we had 300 students applied, and we were 10 of them picked up.
Wow.
And so you can say it was luck or something. So my father at that time, when I told him this is a merchant navy, you go on the ships, and he couldn't imagine what was it. So later when I got recruited, and my family, all of them, when I went back on holidays, they asked me what were you doing, out at sea, working. So I remember this case where I was sitting in the hall room with my cousins, and there was this fishing boat coming in. Oh, this is where you work? This is what you work? Okay. I still remember that incident.
What's the catch like been like recently?
Sorry?
What's the catch been like recently? That's amazing.
Now,
to be fair, I don't think my dad has a clue what I do. I still trying to tell him, and he's just like, well, I don't understand that.
no, later when I became second engineer, one of my ship called Goa.
Right.
So I called my parents on the ship. They stayed for 2 days.
Oh wow!
And then they realized, okay,
That's
seems
awesome.
the sun doing okay.
Yeah. What kind of vessel was that?
That was a Panamax vessel discharging iron ore in Goa.
What was your first vessel when you obviously
It was
a cadet? What, sorry?
Self-unloader bulk carrier.
Oh yeah, yep.
It's called the self-unloader.
Yep.
It runs between US and South America.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long was your first trip?
6 months. We used to sign a contract of 6 months at those times.
How old were you, Ramesh?
Sorry?
What age were you? How old were you?
At that time?
Yeah.
You can say 26. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of experience behind you, and you're obviously not you're a young guy, but you're not a really young
because
guy.
I had finished the 4 years of my mechanical engineering.
That's
when I
fine,
joined.
degree.
After that, I switched over to this profession, marine industry. So at the time, the process of training was that 6 months you do your training onshore, which I did in Mumbai, and then the 6 month you do on board. So that's what the 6 month I was put in the self-unloader, where I was grilled nicely.
Brilliant. And when you did that, I don't know, obviously the age of the vessel, I mean, how did you find it? So obviously doing the initial trip, and it's 6 months away. I don't know what as I say, I don't know what the facilities you had on board or what the age of the vessel. How was it for you? Did you have any doubts in your mind about carrying on, or were you all in?
I had no choice because I had made a choice. I had left what was given to me, MBA, engineering, other professions. So, and when I switched over from the MBA to the marine side, my father was a little bit upset us because we took loans at that time to pay the fees, and he was like, "Are you sure about your decisions?" I just told him, "Yeah." For me, it was no go back. So when I first went on the ship, it was tough. The ship was, I think, about 18 years old, completely manual, and there was no automations, and it was a self-unloader, which means a lot of equipment. Short run, 2 days, 1 day run. So it was pretty hectic. I was on watch keeping. So yeah, initially it was tough. Sometimes being a sailor at those times with the officers we had, the senior managements we had, they used to push us to extremes. But I think that at that time you feel bad, but now looking back, you feel good because you're more confident. Yeah. But to answer your question, that time it is really terrible to understand the young chap going on board and taking all this pressure. And those times there was no phones,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually had a conversation with someone yesterday, and from a totally different part of the industry, and that's what I was saying. It's like I can't even imagine not being able to contact family for so long. And some guys obviously do year-long trips, and especially through COVID, even longer. And
it was tough. It was tough. We didn't have phone to contact back at home, and there was letters at those times. In fact, yesterday I was telling one of my young colleague here who we just recruited, she couldn't even believe that this kind of world existed. I used to write a letter, and the letter used to reach after 3 months, and she used to say, "What the heck?"
You get your letter back, and you're signing off.
Yeah.
So
So
obviously, your career then. So how long did you sail for? So I'm trying to kind of look at that there. How long was your
about
sailing
13
career?
years. About
13 years. And
Yeah.
how long did it take you to reach chief engineer?
To be precise, in 2010.
Right.
Yeah.
So
10 years.
obviously it's
Big,
a lot of
we
commitment.
sailors, we don't continuously sail, so it's like
Yeah.
6-7 months, and then 4 months of a break, and then in between you take a break for 8-9 months for giving your examinations back in India for the license accreditation.
Mhm.
So yeah, about 10 years it took me to become a sailor.
When you were obviously, so one of the questions that I get quite a lot from men and women that are sailing is, especially when they're third engineer or just got basically just maybe not got the experience of second, but go for second, and they always depend. Well, obviously everybody's different in terms of their situation. Some people need to come ashore for various different reasons, but one of the questions is always, will it affect me? So naturally, from my perspective and from what I hear from my clients, it's always a case of we would prefer to have a chief engineer for a superintendent role. But from your perspective, obviously with your experience and the positions you've held, would you say that would be your preference? And then also, as a caveat to that, would you say that if someone had to come ashore for various different reasons, but they were a junior rank, is there still an avenue for them to progress to a senior shore-based position without having gone through that at sea?
So if I'm understanding your question rightly, you're asking, let's take a specific example. If a third engineer comes down, does he has the chance to grow up as a senior management, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is what is happening in Singapore right now. So the guys we are hiring and the young lads don't even have a sailing experience. We don't have a choice. It depends on the local regulation, how it wants the manpower, how you want to grow your manpower. To answer your question, yes, there is a way to move forward. They can still progress for sure, but there should be a passion in it.
Oh yeah.
Because you're connecting this job of technical soup and the technical side of the ship. It is not something you're dealing with day to day. You're dealing with someone who is out at sea, who trusts your decision. For that, you need to have a passion to understand the pain that the other person who is out at sea, who's depending on your decisions. So that particular factor, if he gains it, it's very then they can grow. Especially as I say, seamen are not humans. It's a two different category. So for a human to think like a seaman, takes some time. Takes some time. Like what I do is I put them, go to the ships, take them with us, let them talk to the crew, eat the food on board, so they learn, they understand the pains, then they can relate when they send emails to them. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I have obviously, I do know there is a difference as well. I know quite a lot of companies are now looking for people that have done a degree. So if you've done a marine engineering degree or a naval arch degrey, they'll take you in as I say, for example, as you say, a tech soup, and then kind of work on from there. But there is obviously, I suppose it kind of lends a hand to a lot of the automation and whatnot. But there's still a lot of people that know in the industry that are very much a case of no, we want someone that's a chief engineer, and that's just the way. I suppose everyone's different, but it's good to hear. It's refreshing to hear. What in terms of like when you were sailing, is there anyone that you thought of as a mentor, or was there people that you really looked up to at that time, or it can be any part of your sailing career? Or
I remember one incident. If you remember, I was telling my dad was here to when I told my dad that I'm moving to the shipping industry. So we were supposed to go to the office for signature on the contract when I accepted the job. So that is the time when I went in my office in Mumbai. So my dad was sitting in front of my recruiting officer. I still remember his name is Hoshang Dasdu. So we all students still remember him. He's pretty much still there. So my dad asked him, "What is the future of your son, or future of my son?" So he told maybe 10 years later he's going to sit in this seat. So that made my dad just sign the contract. And to answer you, any mentor, I actually did not have any ideas about the shipping industry. I didn't know. I was just put on the field and I was just battling every day, put on all the older ships.
Yeah.
So every time for me, the mentor will be the person or the chief engineer and the captain who is on board at the time. And I'm honestly lucky that I have sailed with some of the best ones who were 20 plus years in the same company, who used to own their decision being a seafarer. Those times there were no emails. So they used to also teach the young students how to do, what to do. So I didn't have one particular mentor, but as I sailed on different ships, I worked under different people, different chief engineers, captains. Some are bad, some are good, some are rude. I just, just learned their habit. And slowly, as I came on a senior management, I think I had a clear mind in myself as what I should be and what I shouldn't be based on what I have experienced. Because it's not that easy, life, out at sea, those times, it's 6 months, 7 months. We have seen a couple of deaths, a couple of students crying, just going back home immediately. So based on all this experience, I made up my mind as how I should personally behave with my colleagues or the crew I had.
Yeah. Which is, to be fair, it's still going to be hard to do. It's not going to be an easy thing. Everyone's got obviously an ideal of, or not everyone, but quite a lot of people have got an idea of what they want to be and who they want to be. But if you have a really tough trip and you've got a lot of things going wrong, and you might not, it depends obviously what your crew's like. If you've got a crew that you know and you trust, then it might be different. But at the same point, it's things change, but it's hard to maintain that. Right? How can I be in that situation? Did you find? How did you find your first kind of experience as becoming chief and going out and you're top of the department? Was it exciting for you? Was you nervous? Were you
from chief to this now?
No, sorry. From when you were still at sea, so when you became chief engineer, how were you at the start? Were you exhilarated, or was it, oh geez, what have I done?
I was always put into a promotion, as you say, because of a situation. So I became from third to second in the dry dock. When my superintendent saw that no one is working and Ramesh is putting his hard work there, so he instantly promoted me.
Nice.
Same goes with chief engineer. I just did 2 times second engineer, and here there was a big issue on one of the ship bulk carrier back in Thailand. So I got a call from superior. He used to use me as a troubleshooter. So wherever he is a trouble, I'll be sent over there. So he just told me, go there as chief engineer. And when I landed up there, those times they never used to share so many details. And I was the only Indian there. All of them are Filipinos. So, and it was very hard because we had some issues with the crane. But I was very charged up. That was my core, finding a problem. And when you know that your boss, immediate manager, he's supporting you, he understands you, then no job is so hard for you because you give all your 100% efforts for that. So you know that you report to him and he says, Ramesh, just do your best. That's good for me. And so I was pretty much charged, and I had a 6-month contract, and very good, though the vessel was 18 years old also, but I just loved to stay there. So first experience as chief engineer, wonderful, because it was so busy. It was so busy.
Didn't have time to think.
Yeah, in fact, I'll tell you, I'm taking this opportunity to also. As I became chief engineer, the third chief engineer, the third time I was placed on the ship, it was brand new ship. I
Right.
just took over capesize from Japan. I went for a sea trial, 1 month stay there. Took a voyage of 3 months, and I was so bored because all my career I was old, and that is when I decided to quit the sea life.
Oh wow, right, okay, because
Yeah,
you just found it boring with a new
because
vessel.
I found it so boring, and I thought there was no challenge left for me. So,
Wow.
so I decided, and I applied when I was on the ship to to find a shore job.
And where was your first shore job? Was it were you in India or did you have to
No,
move?
it was in Singapore,
Right.
in company Williamson, 2013. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you find that? Were you again? I suppose you're. Well, what was your first? How many vessels you have? 4 or 5?
Again, it was a situational requirement. So what happened was when I was applying for the shore job, I was still with Williamson, and my ex-general manager was on board in Singapore to visit the vessel. So he came to engine room and we were having a short chat. I told this is my last contract with Williamson. I'm going down because I was offered a job back there in India in Tata NYK Lines.
Right.
So uh, I did not sign. I did not accept, but I was planning to go back on a holiday and accepted. So he told me that you don't go anywhere. You just come down, call me, and join the office in Singapore. In the
Was that
same,
the fleet manager? Sorry, or
he was the general manager.
GM? Right. Good. Yeah.
He's a
Brilliant.
Norwegian. He's a very, very well reputed person and just a gentleman. And when I got down, he was my general manager. And at that time, there was a vessel manager who left. So I immediately took over 6 ships as superintendent or
Right.
chief engineer. So okay, there were requirements, so I was pushed over there.
Did
So
you? Was there any upcoming dry docks? Was there any specs that you had to do at the time, or was it? Did you have
no, I was
a bedding
interim
in period?
technical superintendent of 6 ships. So we were taking over ships, we were docking ships.
Yeah.
So first year was very busy. I had to learn the shore side, but I think I was pretty because I was already knowing the systems, so it
Mm.
was a little easy for me to switch over.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
Mm.
What was your biggest challenge making it into the shore jobs and taking on that responsibility? What would you say is the biggest challenge that you had?
The biggest challenge is maintaining the personal life for me
Right.
personally,
Right.
because I was
Okay.
a hardcore workaholic. So after 6 months, my family was here, but I was not able to give time because I was so busy.
Yeah.
I was so busy doing a lot of projects, and in fact, the work-life balance was as good as nothing. It was 90-10, and 90 is to 10% only.
Right.
But and it was 24 hours, 365, non-stop traveling. You just don't know. Uh, Suddenly, my kid was already 2 years old, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
God, you didn't have time to attend their ceremonies or
Yeah. Yeah.
holidays with them." That is something I had a challenge to cope up, because you see, when you spend 13 years as a seaman, to settle down as a human, the normal human life takes time. In fact,
Mm.
even now, it's hard for me to settle down as a human because a part of you is already
Yeah.
molded as a seaman.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is a big challenge even now. Even now.
Mm. So
And
how old
now,
is your
more
how old is your
trips,
kid now?
more
12?
gigs. Sorry?
How old is your kid now? 12?
The daughter is 13 and the son is 9.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And
So,
how do you like it? So that again, that's one of I think that's such an important thing that nobody really ever talks about, but it is the work-life balance and moving so you obviously your wife and yourself, you've lived in India your
yeah,
entire life, and then you're moving to Singapore. And
yeah,
it's a massive change. And
yeah.
obviously bringing kids with you. How did you find that part of it? Other than obviously the work-life balance, how was it the transition to a new country with a young
That
family?
that was okay. That was pretty smooth because my wife was pretty much charged up, and the kids were very young at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good for them. They were liking it. Uh, they were kind of settling down in their own way. But the cultural, there is a lot of cultural difference because for the family was a little tough because they suddenly are isolated here.
Mm.
You don't have any relations, you don't have any, so many friends over here. And so back in India, you have everything, everything is cheap, the house is there. But here in Singapore, it's more isolated. And that's why in 2019, they decided to move back to India. So I stay. So now the family is back in India and I'm here in Singapore.
How often do you go back?
Once in 3 months, 4
Right.
months. Yeah.
Good man. Good man. Well done. Tough. I know a few people, and I've got a couple of friends around Singapore, and it's the same setup. So their family, they've either moved back or, but obviously schooling is so expensive in Singapore as well. So yeah,
have to. It is getting expensive, and so education kids are growing up. So we have to find a balance somewhere. Yeah.
So obviously, you've spent a considerable amount of time, obviously, with Williamson, and then you made the move away. How did it come about? Must be a big change.
That is something I instantly decided. The reasons, of course, I'll keep it away from this discussion.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yes, as I told you, I wanted a challenge, and there was no. I wanted to move forward to challenge myself. Got this role where I have to start the technical management from scratch, zero. So that was a good challenge for me, building it up. So we are in the process now, 1 year up. I used to deal with 6 managers, technical managers. So we outsource our vessels to the technical managers to run.
Right.
So it takes a lot of time for me to figure out, reorganize everything, and structure my own internal process, because this is purely used to be a commercial and operational company.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that gives me a more excitement in my job, because people don't understand, and I have to create everything from scratch, zero, and then they are worried only on the results. So so the system I make should give some results out, which they can understand, and that is used.
So what size of fleet do you have?
Currently, we have 30 ships,
right,
and another 20 to come.
Right.
By
Okay.
2024. Basically, we own the shipyard in China. We are a government-owned company. We own our own shipyard, and we have few other industries as well, as Sumac Marine. But Sumac Ocean Transport is established in Singapore, who is only operating their own vessels, which are built in their own shipyard. And we do deal with the shipyards also. So we're targeting about 50 plus ships by 2024.
Right. That's a big task. So well done. Luckily, you're a workaholic, Ramesh.
Yeah, I have a choice, and I have. That's what. So all these years experience I have gives me the confidence that I can move forward. That's what I just like to have a solution for anything.
Yeah.
As I tell my team that for every problem there are 10 solutions. That is not important. What is important is you pick one particular solution and start working on it, rather than keep talking about those 10 solutions.
Yeah.
So that's how we move forward.
Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that definitely does. What would you say? So obviously you've been shoreside, but you're obviously chief engineer and whatnot. What would you say you've seen the biggest changes in ship management over the past 10 years or 15 years, obviously, before you came ashore? What would you say is the biggest changes?
I would say that's a very good question, actually. I'll see if I can answer that. For me personally, if you ask me, the biggest changes is the importance of seafarers has been taken away from them. We treat them like, you name it, all the regulations, everything is made for the seafarers, but not for the seafarers. It has made life hell on board. They are being treated so bad, because back when I was sailing, I saw the masters how proud they used to feel, and they used to have the power in their hand to take decisions. But now the seafarers are just the scapegoat. Anyone comes can blame them. This is one of the biggest change I have seen, which I myself cannot digest it. So, in my team, I have very clearly told all my ships that there will be no blame game culture here. If there is something happens, it happened. So I think this is something we all, I feel that those people who are sitting on the top and making rules should understand that the world is not the same. Let's say, let's be more precise. The way the seafarers are treated in US, Europe, and UK is not necessarily the same they are treated in China, India, Indonesia, elsewhere. So what happens is it's not fair for the crew, because the regulation is protecting them, but on the other hand is also exposing them with so many regulations, so many things. And then the second is you keep pushing their cost. You keep cutting the cost on the operations. So ultimately, the whole stress goes on the crew. You ask me to do a lot of work, but you don't pay me the money. It's not the salary. Salary he gets, but what about maintenance? What about food? I have seen. I keep visiting the vessels in Singapore or wherever we go. I see the mental condition of seafarers are. They're really stressed. They don't have any more passion. They just come there on board because maybe they have their own commitment of having some. They need some money or stuff. Those times during our time, the chief engineer, they used to sail for passion. I used to sail for my own passion. I used to feel good. So that is missing now. That has changed.
How do you think you can bring that back? That's a big question. I know it's a lot to put on you, but
yeah, there is no straightforward answer for this. But at least what I have done is few things. For example, as I told you, there may be 10 ways to do it. For me, in a couple of things which I try to do on my ships is the food. There is no restriction on the budget. Don't squeeze the food.
Right.
Second is the crew can just call for any matters to us, and there is no blame game. So they are open. Let's take the stress away from their head that, oh, there is someone to blame me. It happens. It happens. Fairly report. We will support you. And the third thing, which I don't know how far this is going, is when I go on board, shaking hand with all of them, because I was once on the other side.
Yeah.
Thanking them and talking to them and engaging them and calling them to the office when they're coming in Singapore to join the ship, treating them with a small lunch or dinner, whatever, goes a long way. Just to treat them for what they are.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm trying to do to see if I can make some changes in the crew mentality. And when they come on board our vessels, they feel good to work for us. Really? Because as long as they work good, we make money.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, you have to have people. I suppose a lot of that will be longevity and looking to keep people and keep the same crew and keep people in the same way that you did. If you can work with someone and you work right through, you get to know everybody. I suppose that helps rather than just constantly changing and different people all the time, and someone's just a number or a name that doesn't really, they don't have the buy-in to the company. But it's not easy. Well, so I've got one of the questions I've actually got here was obviously it's like, how do you ensure your teams on shore and on board are engaged? But in terms of the onshore side, it's a change for you in terms of obviously the size of your team. So what's been the challenge of that? So obviously from being within the ship management model, and you've got obviously a team under you, how do you support them best, and how do you try and pull them into things, but also get them to perform at their best and be able to stand on their own.
Currently, you mean the current
Well,
role?
the change of both, I suppose. So in a typical ship management model to now obviously being in the owner side, what do you do?
Currently, like we are recruiting young guys from whom we recruit, and we try to grow them with us. So one of the things I always try to do with them is sit with them, engage with them almost every day. So we sit, we have lunch or dinners together. One thing what I try to do on myself is to make them feel comfortable taking their own decisions. So I don't impose the decisions. So for example, there was, just for example, yesterday there was an incident. So we, uh, the tech, our assistant, technical assistant asked me, should we report to red ships or not? So I told him, what do you think? So he told me, in my personal view, I think we should be proactive and honest. I said, go ahead with it. So you open, let them decide, and let the consequences come. Because even if, when they give me a solution or their options, I already have my calculations in head what would happen in either way. So sometimes I need to take the consequences also, just to teach it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So then
you're an engineer at heart for sure, Ramesh, aren't you?
so as an engineer, we know that, okay, the problem is somewhere, but let's explore it, give it away. So that makes them also feel better, because that's what I think, that maybe if someone gave me the freedom of deciding, I would definitely feel good that yes, someone is giving me importance in my option. So that's how I engage my team. So most of the time when they come to me with a problem, I ask them, what do you think? What is your way? Just do it. So in the end, I know the result will be this, but how you're going to come to the result, you decide, you take the risk, you come to there, and I'm here with you. Don't worry about that. I'm here standing by with you. So that way, I think my team, even though they're young, they're picking up very good, and few more recruitments I have to do now, but I don't see them stressed at all. So yeah, and the good part is, now we are in a situation like a guy we have just hired, I just hired 3 months back. Initially, he used to ask me so many questions. Now he comes every day and says, Ramesh, last night we did this, this, this. I did this, 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 this. Is that okay with you? I said, fair enough.
Yeah, well,
so
3 months.
So that's good for me, that he's thinking on his own behalf for those levels, whatever his competency is. So, well, I'm monitoring the email, so I know what he's doing, but it's good that he's feeling good to tell me. So yeah, that's how I'm trying to do.
Good on you. I suppose even for, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I won't, but there must be an element of pride as well when you see people standing up, because it could be quite easy to stand back and try and quarterback everything and then take on everything yourself. You're more stressed, you're going to be more angry, you're going to be more kind of abrasive with people. But it must be so cool to be able to sit back and say, wow, that guy, as you say, that guy's been in 3 months, and
yeah, that's what I'm feeling proud about it. So when you see that some risk you take comes out to be good, so from the recruitment process, because it's every step is challenge for me, because this is a non-seafarer guy I've hired, and how will you use him as a technical? So when after 3 months he has taken decisions, after comes me with the ship, I explain him. So when you see that thing coming up, it really feels good. It really feels satisfying. I mean, this cannot be taken or expressed in any way.
Yeah.
Engineers are bad in expressing, but we just see the results.
Would you say your mum or dad had a similar way in terms of they allowed you to make your own mistakes, you and your, I don't know, your brothers and sisters, whatnot, and then support you?
Yeah, So he never interfered in our decisions. So he just stood by that. So, and those times my dad was in different field, so he didn't have anything to even comment on it. He said, "Okay, it's your life. You just do it. You take the risk. You own it." So we owned it. So, and now he feels good as well. I think so. He feels good that we are two brothers. I mean, only two siblings, and both of them are doing very well. Yeah.
Good, brilliant. So in your show-based career, I always love a good dry docking story because I've heard so many amazing ones. But what would you say are some of the highlights of your show-based career in the depths of a dry dock, or obviously emergency repairs?
Mine is
or
not a dry dock. Mine is it's a part of my job. I have done a couple of unique projects in my ex-company which no one has done. For example, I've taken over 13 bulk carriers in 45 days.
Just the 13?
13 ships in 45 days. And it is not that I was knowing about this project 3-4 months back. 2 weeks back, they tell us to take over 13 ships, and boom, I'm there taking over one by one without a single loss of 100% commercial. And then before the COVID, when the market was low, our office was we had to let go many of the employees. So to sustain the office, we were doing a lot of projects. Like at those times, we had a place called Labuan in Malaysia where the ships were laid up.
Yeah.
So I was flying to Labuan, sitting there for 10 days, handling the technicals of all the 130 ships there. So because we had a huge staff there, but not technically sound. So the vessels under layup, the technical on any issues I used to handle over there. And then I used to fly to Malaysia where we had our head office, and I used to work with the gas carrier ships.
Yeah.
Just to assist. And then I'd come back and handle my own 7 ships. So all these projects I used to go back to back. And then there was another challenge which they gave us. We used to be a European company. I mean, my ex-ship management is a European company. There was no experience in dealing with Chinese ship owners. So I was the first to take over the Chinese ships and dealing with the ship owners from the new build. So we took over 6 ships for a Chinese owner, running the vessels in the budget which no one can imagine that can on those. We managed to run, and before I left, those vessels are still going on good. With the 3 years plus, the client was okay with us, and because engaging as a European culture, engaging with the Chinese culture is totally too different. It's very difficult, but I managed to do that. And one of the unique project I did was I was in a tour in India for a visit on a vessel, and through the agents I came across a ship owner who was a commercial manager. He was looking for purchasing a ship, and we got friends there over the dinner, and boom, after 2 months he offered me, "Ramesh, I want to buy a ship. Will you help me?" I said, "Yes, we do." Here you go. He bought his first ship. We took the management in. Of course, there was a lot of issues after that because the ship was it was an Indonesian owner. She paid by cash and all that stuff, but that was a unique case for me as well. So it was basically because of the trust the people had in us, and we gave a solution to them. So those are the things. The dry dock and all these things are pretty much normal for me.
You're like, so obviously you're very much more oversight and commercially focused, really, aren't you? Well, a bit of both, obviously. Oh, that's cool. What do you think, obviously, in terms of you've seen both sides now? What do you see is going to be the kind of the changes? Let me ask you. I keep wanting to say things, but what do you think are going to be the biggest changes and challenges in the next 5 to 10 years from an owner or a management perspective?
Our challenge is owners are squeezed and squeezed and squeezed for the money with these new regulations which are coming in. And I don't see that these regulations are really helping anyone. We are giving out more money for every year. There's new regulation coming that we have to invest more money. Our profit margins are low. Charters and the global situation is not so stable. The war comes here. The commodity rates are going fluctuating. Charter rates are just, the index is not just so stable. So I don't think that there will be a solid owners per se. There will be more of the banking type of owners, the investors coming in the field. And then comes the challenge is that they don't understand the shipping itself. They just want to earn money. It will become a pure business oriented versus what it used to be, a steel owner. They used to feel I am a steel owner and I have to own these good ships. But now I don't think it'll be a virtual kind of thing. And very messy market I see, in future, where no one knows where we are heading to. We are just heading to somewhere every year. Things are changing. It's pretty messed up, I can say, with more technology. I think by now we should have at least had a very good system in place where we know how to move to the forward. But I don't think so. It's happening. Everyone is pulling the car in their own way.
Yeah. In so many different ways. In terms of like the vessels that are your the next 20, what kind of propulsion systems are you going for? What kind of, is there any modern fuels or alternative fuels? Sorry, or
we are looking into alternative fuels, but those which are already, the 21s are already with the conventional type.
Right.
But we have invested in a design modification. So we have some design equipments in the hull and stuff to reduce the fuel oil consumption compared to our original fleet vessels. Yeah, we are mainly doing the Ultramax ships, 75% Ultramax, 25% Kamsarmax. Right. So yeah, that's how things are for us.
Well, obviously, just from your perspective, where would you put your money on in the from the alternative fuels? Like, what do you think's going to win through, or do you think anything? Like, obviously, it was like hydrogen, the ignition. People talk about hydrogen, but it's very, very easy to ignite and that side of things. So, what do you think?
I think it's too early to nail on any particular fuel. I can only say all this fuel now are as a transitional fuel. But something excites me is the nuclear fuel. Right. Because of the well to take and all this, from where the source is coming to the end, if it has to be green and all this stuff, I think the only fuel which meets currently is the nuclear. So, but there are a couple of technologies coming in, but once the nuclear technology becomes safe and secure to use, I think that would definitely put my money in that, because the rest all will be open-ended. They will not be a solution. It will be a transition only. You cannot change over completely to those kind of technologies. So,
forgive me. Sorry,
no problem.
Frog in my throat there. Okay, no, it's good to hear. It's good to. It's always interesting because everyone will have a different insight, and well, not everyone, but the majority, and depending on obviously the vessel types that you work with as well. So obviously you're a gas guy as well. What do you prefer working with bulkers than the gas ships, or?
Any ship is okay. We are engineers for us. There's no specific. The one thing I would like to say is the bulkers are more hard to handle because the budget restrictions, the way she moves anywhere and everywhere, the way the cargoes are changed, there is no budget. The crew is different. The competency is not. Compared to gas and tankers, you have a good budget, you have a very good technology, you have quality control right from the spares. This is a mess, complete mess. So I would say I think bulk carriers is more challenging nowadays.
Yeah. So easy. I remember the first time. Obviously, I'm not a mariner, so I don't know, but I didn't realize I was speaking to an Egyptian master, and he was talking about obviously taking cargo on, and the process you have to go through is just like you can break a ship if you do it wrong. It's like, say that again. So so it's just, again, it's things from my perspective I would have no idea, but it's incredible.
Yeah,
It's
that's
incredible.
true.
So what's next for you then? What's the big challenge? Are you obviously you're in this, but is that, well, where do you want to go within your career? I know obviously it's probably a bad question to ask in a podcast, considering your employer might hear about it.
No, everyone has to grow. Everyone has to look forward for something. Certainly not a businessman. Something in this field, maybe the maybe general manager or something like that of some ownership. Right now, I'm a technical director, but I would like to be, now that I'm getting exposed towards operations and the technical board side, more into P&L, profit loss and stuff like that. So I can only see more bigger role for me to come. And now with this starting from scratch, the technical management, digitalization and all, I think I'll be having a right mentality, or the things in my head for every ship owners, if they really want to invest in a proper, a good ship owning, company, a solid, because I have a background of being a ship sailor, so plus the shore side. So I cannot say I have a dream of becoming this, but I can only see the more I grow, the more the company I work with will definitely benefit, because I have this wide range of experience. I can feel that ship and take the decisions in that way. So if definitely I want to work with a company who's on a long term for me, because I'm not a guy who wants to switch over here and there. So if the company makes benefit, it's good for me. So some more bigger role where I can have a more bigger decisions to make more profit.
Brilliant.
But I never say making profit is always the right way. Making the business more sustainable and stable, that is important for me. Sometimes the profit may not come in 1 year, the profit may come in the long term. So
So for anyone, I always like, there's a couple of different things that we usually end the podcast on, and one of them is for anyone that's listening, that either isn't in the industry, that randomly, what would you say, or for someone that's young and beginning their career, would you say, how would you talk to them and tell them about the industry and whether they should or shouldn't get into
it? Okay. I would straight away tell them, if you have passion, come in. If you don't have passion and just for money, don't come in. This is not the place, because you have many other options nowadays, unlike those times. If you have really passion to go out at sea and do something better, then come in. That's the very simple thing I would tell them. Because if you come here without passion, not just you yourself is going to get affected, but the people whom you're working with, they also get affected. So it's like
Very true, very true. And then the one, just to end on a light note, what was the first memory you've got of ships or shipping that you have and it might have excited you at the time?
Sorry, I didn't get that. As memory.
What was the first memory you've got, maybe as a child, of ships or shipping that might have sparked something in your mind?
When I was a kid, I used to go to Goa, and I used to see this small ferry boats, and somewhere I just used to think, how does this float, and the people, how are they? Those times I was not exposed to bigger ships, so it's just in the coastal area.
Mm.
So I didn't have any clue of the ships, and the first was this ferry kind of boat. And in fact, the first ship I boarded was not a ferry boat; it was the first cadet ship. I never
Right.
boarded a ferry. So, yeah. To answer your question, I think I didn't have any clue. I didn't
Right.
have any.
Yeah, yeah.
There was
Awesome.
no fantasy. There is no imaginations or anything. It's just simple.
Just happened. You just went for it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
Well,
Just
Ramesh, sorry, thank you so much for coming
thank
on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Obviously, as I say, I've spoken to you so many times over the years, and just it's nice to hear different stories. And I love the fact that obviously your mum and dad got to spend a couple of days on Goa. That was awesome. I love that.
yeah.
That's so cool.
But thank you, Gordon, to also talk and let me go in my memories back. I think
yeah.
but taking out those memories which are deep, inside, and always good to talk to you. And yeah, thank you very much once again.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.